Okay, this is part 27 of Nos4a2, the kitchen. It was a small, dingy space with a yellow formica-topped table in it and an ugly black phone on the wall under a sun-faded child's drawing. Dusty yellow polka-dot streamers dangled from the ceiling, hanging perfectly motionless in the still air as if someone had thrown a birthday party here years ago and had never entirely cleaned up. To Vic's right was a metal door open to reveal a pantry containing a washer and dryer, a few shelves of dry goods, and a stainless steel cabinet built into the wall. Beside the pantry door was a big refrigerator with sloppy bathtub styling. Frigidaire. I don't know the difference, but this says Frigidaire. Anyway, the room was warm, the air close and stale, a TV dinner baked in the oven. She could envision the slices of turkey in one compartment, mashed potatoes in another, tinfoil covering the dessert. 2 bottles of orange pop stood on the counter. There was a door to the backyard. In 3 steps, Vic was there. The dead boy watched the rear of the house. She knew he was dead now, or worse than dead, that he was a child of the man Charlie Mannix. He stood perfectly still in his rawhide coat and jeans and bare feet. His hood was pushed back to show his pale hair and the black branches of veins in his temples. His mouth was open to show his rows of needle teeth. He saw her and grinned, but did not move as she cried out and turned the bolt. He had left a trail of white footprints behind him, where the grass had frozen at the touch of his feet. His face had the glassy smoothness of enamel. His eyes were faintly clouded with frost. "Come out," he said, his breath smoking. "Come out here and stop being so silly. We will all go to Christmas Land together." She backed away from the door. Her hip bumped the oven. She turned and began pulling open drawers, looking for a knife. The first one she opened was full of kitchen rags. The second held whisks, spatulas, dead flies. She went back to the first drawer, grabbed bunches of hand towels, opened the oven, and threw them in on top of the turkey dinner. She left the oven door parted a crack. There was a frying pan on the stove. She grabbed it by the handle. It felt good to have something to swing. Mr. Mannix, I saw her. She's being a goof," the boy shouted. Then he yelled, "This is fun." Vic turned and plunged through the bat-wing doors and back to the front of the house. She peered through the window by the door again. Mannix had walked her bicycle closer to the bridge. He stood before the opening, considering the darkness, head cocked to one side, listening to it, perhaps. Finally, he seemed to decide something. He bent and gave the bicycle a strong, smooth shove out onto the bridge. Her volley rolled across the threshold and into the darkness. An invisible needle slid into her left eye and back into her brain. She sobbed, couldn't help herself, and doubled over. The needle withdrew, then slid in again. She wanted her head to explode, wanted to die. She heard a pop like her ears depressurizing, and the house shuddered. It was as if a jet had screamed by overhead, breaking the sound barrier. The front hall began to smell of smoke. Vic lifted her head and squinted out through the window. The shorter way was gone. She had known it would be the moment she heard that hard, piercing pop. The bridge had collapsed into itself like a dying sun going nova. Charlie Mannix walked toward the house, the tails of his coat flapping. There was no humor in his pinched, ugly face now. He looked instead like a stupid man, set upon doing something barbaric. She glanced at the stairs, but knew if she went up there, she would have no way back down. That left the kitchen. When she stepped through the bat-wing doors, the boy was at the rear door, his face up against the glass of the window set into it. He grinned to show his mouth full of delicate hooks, those fine rows of curving bones. His breath spread feathers of silvery frost across the pane. The phone rang. Vic yelped as if someone had grabbed her, looked around at it. Her face batted against the yellow polka-dot streamers hanging from the ceiling. Only they weren't streamers at all. They were strips of flypaper with dozens of withered dead fly husks stuck to them. There was bile in the back of Vic's throat. It tasted sour-sweet, like a frappé from Terry's Gone Bad. The phone rang again. She grabbed the receiver, but before she picked it up, her gaze fixed on the child's drawing taped directly above the phone. The paper was dry and brown and brittle with age, the tape gone yellow. It showed a forest of cran trees grand Christmas trees, and the man called Charlie Mannix in a Santa hat with two little girls grinning to show a mouthful of fangs. The children in the picture were very like the thing in the backyard that had once been a child. Vic put the phone to her ear. "Help me," she cried. "Help me, please." "Where are you, ma'am?" said someone with a childlike voice. I don't know, I'm lost." "We already have a car there. It's in the garage. Go get in the back seat and our driver will take you to Christmasland." Whoever was on the other end of the line giggled. "We'll take care of you when you get here. We'll hang your eyeballs from our big Christmas tree." Vic hung up. She heard a crunch behind her, whirled, and saw that the little boy had slammed his forehead into the window. A spiderweb of shattered glass filled the pane. The boy himself seemed uninjured. Back in the foyer, she heard Mannix force the front door open, heard it catch against the chain. The child pulled his head back, then snapped it forward, and his forehead hit the window with another hard crunch. Splinters of glass fell. The boy laughed. The first yellow flames licked out of the half-open oven. They made a sound like a pigeon beating its wings. The wallpaper to the right of the oven was blackening, curling. Vic no longer remembered why she had wanted to start a fire. Something about escaping in a confusion of smoke. There is the picture that was on the fridge. Okay. The child reached through the shattered window pane, his hand feeling for the bolt. Jagged glass points scraped his wrist, peeled up shavings of skin, drew black blood. It didn't seem to bother him. Vic swung the frying pan at his hand. She threw herself into her swing with her whole weight, and the force of the blow carried her straight into the door. She recoiled, stumbled backward, and sat down on the floor. The boy jerked his hand outside, and she saw that 3 of his fingers had been smashed out of true, grotesquely bent the wrong way. "You're funny," he shouted and laughed. Vic kicked her heels, sliding backward on her ass across the cream-colored tiles. The boy stuck his face through the broken window pane and waggled his black tongue at her. Red flame belched out of the oven, and for a moment her hair was burning on the right side of her head, the fine hairs crinkling and charring and shriveling up. She swatted at herself. Sparks flew. Mannix hit the front door. The chain snapped with a tinny clinking sound. The bolt tore free with a loud crack. She heard the door smash into the wall with a house-shaking bang. The boy reached through the broken window again and unlocked the back door. Burning strips of flypaper fell around her. Vic shoved herself up off her ass and turned, and Mannix was on the other side of the batwing doors, about to step into the kitchen. He looked at her with a wide-eyed and avid fascination on his ugly face. "When I saw your bike, I thought you would be younger," Mannix said, "but you are all grown. That is too bad for you. Christmasland is not such a good place for girls who are all grown." The door behind her opened, and when it did, there was a feeling of all the hot air being sucked out of the room as if the world outside were inhaling. A red cyclone of flame whirled from the open oven, and 1,000 hot sparks whirled with it. Black smoke gushed. When Mannix swatted through the batwing doors coming for her, Vic shied away from him, squirming out of reach and ducking behind the big, bulky Frigidaire, stepping toward the only place that remained to her into